On Nationwide this evening, voluntary, community and business groups working together can achieve a lot. We are in the town of Tramore to see the work undertaken by different organisations, all of whom want to improve aspects of life in this Waterford town. Working to preserve old buildings and parks, plus nurturing nature and enhancing the environment for all. Tramore is a seaside town on the southeast coast of Ireland. With humble beginnings as a small fishing village, the area saw rapid development with the arrival of the railway from Waterford City in 1853. But Tramore has now become a satellite town of the city, with a growing population, emerging businesses and a collection of community groups which contribute to the town's success. Like many communities all around the country, the people here have come together to face a year where the COVID pandemic brought challenges like never before.
We've come to Tramore in County Waterford just to see what makes Tramore so fantastic and why it's one of the fastest growing towns in the country. Linda Lawton, you're involved in the Chamber of Commerce here, but it's not just that, you're a resident of Tramore. When I think of Tramore, I think seaside town with hurdy-gurdies.
Absolutely, Blonnet, we are that, but it's also so much more here. There's a really vibrant community here. We have fantastic food offering. Even if somebody was getting married, they could come here, start at the top of the town, get their wedding dress, move on down, florist, lingerie, mother of the bride outfit, and have a beautiful weekend here in Tramore. So yes, there's loads of fun for the family here, but really it's so much more than that.
How did Tramore and how did the community respond to the COVID pandemic?
Well, I suppose like everybody else, you know, it hit hard here. We have a lot of locally owned businesses and small businesses, so I suppose they really were affected. But as a community, everybody really pulled together. We saw fantastic initiatives. We saw community groups and businesses coming together to help the community. We had the Tidy Towns, we had the Meals on Wheels, we had local women making masks for charity. So really it was a fantastic coming together of people. And I suppose the one thing we have in our favour here in Tramore, of course, is our beautiful scenery and the quality of life that we have. So in terms of mental health, you could still get out in the mornings, you could go onto this beautiful beach, have a walk, you know, you would still meet people, but you could socially distance to your heart's content. And I suppose that was really important for us here in Tramore.
During a very difficult year, Tramore managed to win the accolade of a Better Towns Award through a Bank of Ireland initiative.
What did it mean to the town and to the community to win the Better Town Award?
Oh, Blondet, it was just so exciting in the middle of a pandemic, and it was really great from a community perspective. Ourselves in the Chamber and Waterford Council put in the application, and we were just so excited that we were awarded with Special Recognition Award for the community and the business community coming together during COVID.
So when these restrictions are over, you're ready to go?
Absolutely. Yeah, we are just chomping at the bit to get started again. We had 5 new businesses open this year, even in the middle of a pandemic. So Tramore is really a town on the up. You see the likes of Seaside Bakery, who's made a huge difference to the town, expanding. They're expanding into Waterford. They just this week announced that they're making their own homemade pasta. So really there are some fantastic businesses here that are growing and have grown within the pandemic. So really once things kind of come out of it, we're absolutely ready to go.
Whatever's thrown at you, you react.
We take what comes. And that's the Waterford way, you know, we just make sure it happens and we just get on with it. And there is a sense of positivity here as well. You know, there is a lot coming down the road for Waterford, for Tramore, for Dungarvan, and for the whole county in terms of the North Quays, the Copper Coast. So really, I suppose we can see light at the end of the tunnel, and we just want to get there now.
One of the community groups which has made a huge difference to the town is the Tramore Development Trust. Anne Harper is an architect and volunteer with the group.
Tramore Development Trust is a community development organisation that was set up 20 years ago, and we're celebrating our 20th anniversary. So it was established to harness the potential of the community of Tramore and the development of Tramore through its built environment. So we have a group of very committed volunteers that work with us. 20 years ago, obviously Tramore was not as vibrant or as dynamic as it is today, and the town centre had really fallen into disrepair, and it needed attention, it needed focus. So 20 years ago, a group of us came together and said, what can we do?
I suppose when you're a town on the coast, it has its own demands, yet its own beauty.
Absolutely. I mean, here we are at the Coast Guard, and the Coast Guard was our first project. So at that stage, I mean, it dates back to 1874, and it was left vacant in 1988, and it fell into disrepair and was completely burnt to the ground. So that was our first building that we looked at and said, this is such a key building, it can't be left like this. We need to find a community use for here. And at that stage there was no community centre, and so we assigned that use to it. And then our other project is the Lafcadio Hearn Gardens, because the public park had fallen into disrepair, so that was another refurbishment project.
What projects are coming up?
Our other project is the meeting place, based on our performance here with the Coast Guard. The Friends, Society of Friends approached us and said, we have a meeting place that needs to be refurbished and we're not availing of it. So we got Department of Justice funding for the building, we refurbished it, and now we have the Brothers of Charity who use the building for a centre for adults with special needs.
Thanks to the Development Trust, the old Coast Guard station is now a cultural and creative space. Louise Grubb is treasurer of the Development Trust.
You've so much going on here, Louise.
Yeah, it's super. I mean, we've got this beautiful building that we are responsible for. We've been able to create a community access to it. But like all projects, it has to be sustainable. So we try and get as much activities as possible and as much out of this wonderful building. So it's a cultural centre, so primarily it's craft, it's art, we have exhibitions, and then we have local organisations like yoga classes. And I mean, I've had yoga classes myself up there where you're looking out at the sea, and there's a beautiful atmosphere for it. And then of course we have a cafe, because that's what keeps us going. And we were fortunate during COVID to be able to keep our cafe open, albeit a takeaway service, but people can be walking the Doneraile, walking the beach, drop in for a coffee, either have a look out at the sea, beautiful venue, or sit down on some of the benches on the Doneraile and enjoy it. Last year, with the help of the Local Enterprise Office, we got some funding to really bring, to create a collaboration of craftspeople together, a creative, if you like. One of the outputs from it was to bring some of those crafts online, because we've got Coast Guard creatives. And you'll find that a lot of small businesses, like individual businesses, it was a real challenge with COVID to get online. You know, they hadn't really embraced it, it was difficult. And we were able to provide click and collect here, so we have facility for it. It's been a little bit challenged this year because we haven't been able to bring them together, but we will grow and build on that now.
One of the projects to come under the Tramore Development Trust is the Lafcadio Hearn Japanese Gardens, which is a great addition to Tramore. Recently, local resident Paul Jackman gifted the gardens with a novel fundraising initiative following the production of a set of historical maps of the area.
The story began in looking at the history, the maritime history of Tramore, and what we saw is that the old maps of Tramore were dictated by the lines of latitude and longitude, which was normal at the time. And so that in effect cut part of Tramore out, and it put a line through Brownstown Head, so there were no maps available where Tramore was front and centre, if you like, of a map based on Tramore's maritime history and local environs. So that all changed in the mid-90s when the Ordnance Survey digitised all the maps of Ireland. So now the door was open to create a map. You could dictate the format, the scale, the location of any map of any part of Ireland. Just clearing out a room in my house, and I came across one of the original prints recently. So I approached Janet here in the Japanese gardens, and I just suggested they take it on. I had no problem giving them access to them. So they are now making the maps available. And what we have now is a considerable expat population from Tramore, as well as a growing population. So I'm sure they'll be of interest to many people in the town. And it's a lovely depiction of the town's history, you know.
Well, the Lafcadio Hearn Japanese Gardens opened in 2015. It was previously a derelict site here on the grounds of Old Tramore House, but we are very much dependent on funding here. The garden sits on 2.5 acres. Because it's a Japanese garden, it needs meticulous maintenance. So we have to have our workers here are on schemes funded by CS scheme and by PUBL. So that helps us, but mostly in order to keep the gardens as beautiful as these gardens are, we depend on the entry fees that come in through the gate. So with the maps, basically, that Paul has given us the means to produce these now, it is another way of helping to fund the gardens. I mean, the calligraphy and the beautiful artwork of Tom Dack would look fantastic on any wall, particularly if you have an interest in Maritime, or even some of the diaspora, or people living in Tramore.
Once we had the template, if you like, the foundation, there's a man in Thomastown who was an artist based in Thomastown. He's a calligrapher and a cartographer, so I approached Tom. He was up for it. We then approached Mr. Andy Taylor, who's a local historian, had written several books on Tramore, and he kindly gave permission to extract the information out of his books and to give a physical, an artistic representation in a kind of an old world format. So if you like, with the camera down close on the town, with that scale, we're focusing in on the buildings of the town itself, you know, so the beach, the old race course down below, the new race course above, and prominent buildings within the town. So it's kind of it's intrinsic history. And the second map then expands out and takes in the bay and the graveyard of ships and pinpoints where they are, and again highlights the pier, Newtown Cove, the Gillamine, and again their history with statistics on the population of the different parishes and townlands around the area. The third one then lifts the camera again, and now we're gone from Boatstrand to Dunmore. So again we're going into Dunhill Castle, the dolmens and historical aspects in the environs of Tramore.
Well, Tramore was a Victorian town. It was very famous in those days. A lot of people came from England over to Tramore itself. It was known as the Brighton of Ireland at the time, so we got quite a lot of upper class people came here. Then in 1853, when the railway station opened up, we brought mass tourism, and that was the first time we had mass tourism here in Tramore. Behind me we have Tramore Bay, and in the bay itself it's known as the Bay of Wrecks. And if we go back to the maps that we've been looking at, we can see that a number of the ships actually went down, were all located and came in onto the strand. Others actually sank down in the bay itself, and they're lost forever. Now the main ship that we talk about is the Seahorse, and the Seahorse had 383 people on board. 363 people died in one day on that particular shipwreck.
The scale of the shipwrecks, an impact it has had, is on how the material from the ships, once when they were salvaged, can be seen in many of the buildings in Tramore. And the most prominent example of that is in the Victoria House, where there's the prow off a ship, and it was found when the building was being done up in 1989 actually. And that was for an archway into the stables where the horses were kept, and the Roman numerals are on it depicting the tonnage of the ship. And it is our opinion that it's from the Seahorse. When you look at the timeline, 1816 the Seahorse went down, and 1818 the Victoria House opened up. So it does work out.
On Newtown Head here we have 3 towers, and you can see in the central tower we have the Metal Man. He's famous here in Tramore itself. He's part of tourism now, but he was a warning signal for ships going by. Sailing ships went by here in great numbers, and the problem was they were turning into Tramore Bay. So the 3 towers were put here on Newtown Head, 2 towers were put across on Brownstown Head, and then further down on Hook Head we have 1 tower. So it's actually a system showing that the ships should not come into Tramore Bay. Between 3 and 2 was Tramore Bay, you were not to go in, and between 2 and 1 was Waterford Harbour, it was a safe harbour. Well, the metal man himself, there's a good story to him. It's believed there were 4 of these metal men actually made. They're made in the same foundry. 2 of them we do know exist, because you can see the one here in Tramore, and there's also one up in Sligo, in Ross's Point. So those 2 are still in existence, and if you consider after 200 years, the metal is still as good today as it was then. Back in Victorian times, it was always very interesting for young women to go to get themselves a husband. And we found here in Tramore that the tower itself, the centre tower where the metal man is, it was believed that if a young lady could hop around on 1 foot 3 times around the base of the tower, she'd be married within a year. It's wonderful to actually have something like this here preserved in history, but when we put it onto a map, it's there forever. We'll always have it as a pictorial record.
So the maps are already on our website. They can be downloaded in A3 size. You can look at them on your computer, and it'll give you a really, really great feel of what the maps are all about. We also can produce those then, if ordered online, or if just make a call to the gardens, into an A1 map, which visually is absolutely spectacular. We're delighted, and thanks to Paul, that we can produce them, and all proceeds from the maps go towards the maintenance of the gardens.
What fantastic history captured in those beautiful maps of Tramore, and they would look great on any wall. We're going to take a break and we'll be back in a few minutes. Welcome back to Nationwide. We are here in Tramore and County Waterford meeting community groups.
The natural environment of Tramore is one of its attractions, and this encouraged a group of like-minded volunteers to set up the Tramore Eco Group, which raises awareness within the community of how to care for the natural beauty of the area. Afra Cronin is part of this group.
It's to really encourage everybody else to appreciate our area as we do. We do a lot of small things, but put together there's an amount of work to be done and has already been done.
These include organising beach cleans and installing plastic bottle recycling units around the town, amongst many others.
You know, sometimes the smaller projects grow into bigger projects, which is fantastic.
Well, that's what we've done everything on a small scale, actually. We did a bee corridor last year, and that had been thought about and presented to one of the estates before COVID. And as it happened, it was an absolute blessing, because we were ready with seedlings as COVID closed down. So we were able to give them away at the gate.
Brilliant.
So Tramore became a bee corridor.
Katrina Bent is an ecologist with the group who initiated surveys to record the diversity within the natural environment.
A big part of the survey was really of training people, of encouraging people to make observations. You know, we started the pollinator study, we did, the plants. We've done, at the moment, we're ongoing doing the bird surveys. So it's been a fantastic time of people getting involved, getting interested, and starting to observe. Do you know, the more we study, the more we observe, the more we realise the richness of nature in this area. I mean, I suppose from an ecological point of view, the sand dunes are the rarest, the most vulnerable, and the most precious environment to protect and to preserve here. But there are woodlands, there are streams that also have given us some lovely surprises as to what we found in them. Maybe to put it in a global, bigger context, every ecosystem, every habitat at the moment is worth preserving, because of, we're facing so many threats at the moment, in terms of climate change. So there is nothing really that we should lose. Everything should be preserved and even enhanced,
The Eco Group want to inform the general public who use these spaces.
You might see people who would maybe see the area just for, it's a dog walking place, or it's an amenity. So I suppose there's scope for education and scope for spreading information about what really is there. There is a project where we have been putting up signage, and we'll be putting up more signage. A council has as well been involved in doing that, so that people could look up things of interest, and it would enrich, I suppose, the experience people have when they are using the amenities here.
Now, Tramore is considered to be a very safe, protected bay, which makes it ideal for water activities, surfing, paddleboarding, and of course swimming. Here in the Gillamine in Newtown Cove, I've come to meet a hardy bunch who swim in the sea all year round.
Michael, what does it feel like when you get out of the water?
Oh, it's exhilarating. You're like a new person. Every time I swim every day, but every time I come out of the water, I feel like a new man. It's unbelievable. You get addicted to it.
It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life.
There's just something in the water which is good for both the mind and the body.
Well, your smile says it all, I have to say.
Well, that's the effect of the sea, so.
I was immediately attracted to the sense of camaraderie. Great crack, cheering each other on, jump, dive. It's brilliant.
Oh yeah, there's a great group here. Like we'd have over 200 members in the club, but people break into their own little groups. So there's always fun, it's always good crack here, and new members are always welcome. And like I think sea swimmers are a group. Like there's places you can swim all over Ireland, but you can always chat to sea swimmers. And if people want to join and become a sea swimmer, they're always welcome. And people let them know the ins and outs of sea swimming. Especially in the winter sea swimming, it's cold and you have to be more careful.
Oh, freedom is mine, and I know how I feel.
I come down here because it's really refreshing. The crowd are very friendly and social, and we go for a walk after it, and it feels really good when I'm finished.
Well, my day wouldn't be right unless I got into the sea every morning. There's 3 of us come here every morning, especially during the COVID. There's not a lot else we can do, only keep fit and keep our minds healthy, and it's absolutely invigorating, and I adore it.
It's a great way to start today. Really enjoy it, and it's highly healthy. And that's the reason why I do it anyway.
I love the sea. I'm swimming since I'm 2 years old in the sea. I just love the sea, and I learned to love this cold atmosphere because it's so beneficial. And thanks to these people, they taught me how to. I was a bit scared at the start. I thought it was could be dangerous, but now that I understand it, I love it. I can't live without it. If I don't swim every day, I'm like a cat in a bag.
I feel so good.
They are brave souls. I think I'll leave my gloves on and stay on dry land. Well done to all the community groups here in Tramore. We've had a brilliant day. That ends our programme for this evening. I hope you enjoyed the programme. Gdí chéadú eile, bamigi slán agus sábháilte.